The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association is providing this podcast as a public service for informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host or guest of this podcast are their own and may not reflect those of the BSSA, employees of the BSSA, or any of its officials. Any reference to a specific product, entity, opinion, issue, or other such item does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation thereof by the BSSA. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association.
One of the things that I got into law enforcement for was to make people safe and to right a wrong. I got into law enforcement 34 years ago, and I love it as much today as I did back when I first started. And it's that feeling of being able to help somebody and being able to do something to make somebody's life a better life to live that really drives me every day.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast, where we'll introduce sheriffs and deputies across Ohio. During this conversation, you'll get to know the men and women serving you and hear all about the good work being done in the Buckeye State every day. Now let's join your host, Paulding County Sheriff Jason Landers, and today's special guest.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We're here today with Sheriff Matt Bayles from Marion County. I'm Jason Landers, Sheriff in Paulding County, the host of today's podcast. Welcome in, Sheriff Bayles. How's your day going?
Day's going great. Thank you for having me here.
Good. You're episode number 5 with the BSSA podcast. Made your way in from Marion. We're glad that you came to the flatlands of Paulding County and eager to learn a little bit more about you. We've spent, just about an hour together, and we're far enough away in different parts of Ohio that I don't know you as well as some others. So I've enjoyed our first hour, and I'm excited to get some of this stuff on record here and tell people about you. So let's get started telling your citizens who's serving them in the capacity of the office of sheriff. Who is Matt Bayles?
Matt Bayles is a born and raised Marion person. I was born and raised in Marion County. I graduated from Marion Harding High School in 1984. I got a football scholarship to the University of Toledo, where I spent 4 years playing football up there and going to classes. I majored in English secondary education, but I was always destined to be a first responder, I think, because that's my family. Have all been first responders. My father was a firefighter. My uncle was a firefighter. My cousin was the fire chief at the Marion Fire Department. My brother was a police officer. My brother-in-law was a police officer. So I was kind of destined to go that career path.
Yeah, it's just in your bloodline, man. I'm a sports guy, Matt, so we got to go back and talk about the Rockets a little bit. That's something. So I'll telling myself here a little bit when I get ready for these podcasts, do a little internet searching, see what I can find out about somebody. And when I came across the Toledo Rockets career, talk about that a little bit, man. That is awesome. So a little Division I football in the Mid-American Conference up there at Toledo. The Glass Bowl, the stadium up there. Talk about your football career a little bit. That's awesome.
2-year letter winner there. We played some big teams while I was there. We played, I was fortunate enough to go down and play against Florida State. We played against Miami of Florida, the last game of my career, and that team had Jimmy Johnson as the coach. Michael Irvin was on that team. I think they were the national champions that year, and they beat us 24-14, which I was very proud of, that we were able to stay in the game with them like that. They were up 17-0 at halftime, and they beat us 24-14. So the Rockets did well that day.
That's awesome. So what was your position? Were you on the offensive line or defensive line, or what positions you play?
First 2 years I played offensive line. The second 2 years I played defensive line.
Okay, very good. And any All-Americans, any notable people that you played with over your 4 years at Toledo?
I played with Brent Williams, who played for the Patriots and the Seahawks. I played with Ken Moyer, who spent, I think, 7 or 8 years with the Bengals on the offensive line. I played against notable people. Of course, I mentioned the people on the Hurricanes, but John Offerdahl, I played against him. He played in Western Michigan, All-American, played for the Dolphins. The guy I went against down at Miami was Matt Patchen. He was a third-round draft pick of the Eagles. So it was a life-changing, never forgetting experience playing for the Rockets.
Yeah, well, you're a big dude, man. I wouldn't want to come up against you for certain on a line and clashing with those shoulder pads on. That's pretty awesome. So you talked about going into like an education field, but then you were just drawn right back into that public safety, that first responder lifestyle you talked about ran pretty deep through your bloodlines.
Yeah, growing up in Marion, of course, my dad was a firefighter. I used to, during the summertime, I'd ride my bike up to the fire station and see him every day that he worked, and spent the night up there a couple nights. And so I got to meet all the firefighters. And my brother was a police officer. He's 10 years older than me, so he was a police officer whenever I was in school. So he would come home and tell me stories about what happened that night or that day. He had some pretty exciting stuff to tell me, and so it kind of got into my blood a little bit. And I always knew that I was going to be either a firefighter or a police officer.
Well, and so when we talk to kids, I'm sure you go to career days and things of that nature, trying to recruit kids. We'll talk to a little bit more about that as we go through it. Your education in English and such at UT had to help you tremendously when you get into law enforcement, because I think people don't understand how much paperwork that we have to do, whether it's reading or writing. I say sometimes to myself, this is payback for me. I wasn't necessarily a good student at Paulding High School, and now all I do is, read and write and review people's grammar and punctuation and do math and budgets. And so it's kind of interesting how that comes around. But for you, right out of high school, you were taking appropriate skills at UT that led right into your career in law enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a tremendous amount of report writing that goes along with law enforcement. I heard a quote once where law enforcement is 80% boredom, 15% excitement, and 5% terror.
Yeah, well, I would concur with that. That's pretty good. So you go through UT, graduate, then you go straight into the police academy. If you did, where'd that happen, and what's that time frame?
I actually got hired at the police department before I went to the academy. They paid for my academy. I went, this would be 1989. I went to North Central Technical College for the police academy. The Highway Patrol Academy is where they usually send people, but they had a weight limit on, you couldn't be over 225 pounds to go through the Highway Patrol Academy at that time. And at that time, I was probably, this was, soon after I got out of playing college football, I was probably about 280. So I wasn't eligible to go through the Highway Patrol Academy, so they sent me to the North Central Technical College.
Yeah, the patrol academies don't have a lot of offensive, defensive linemen. Probably they're bringing through running backs and quarterbacks and receivers, aren't
Exactly.
they? Yeah, I understand that. So what's that time frame like they put you through the police academy? And talk to the listeners a little bit about what your career looked like through Marion PD and how'd you step through that process, different ranks or positions that you held within that agency.
I started there, went through the police academy, and then April of 1990, I graduated the police academy and started full-time at the police department. I was 4 years as a patrolman, and then I was able to become a canine officer. And I was a canine officer for 5 years. I got promoted to sergeant during that time period, and then the sergeant position turned into a lieutenant's position during that time period as well. And then I the rest of my career, I was a lieutenant at the police department, 13 years in charge of the canine program, and then I was a shift supervisor the rest of the time that I was there.
All right, so summarize that and how many years of experience in law enforcement, Matt?
30 years at the Marion Police Department.
30 years. And then at one point, we'll talk a little bit about this down the line, you had a vision to potentially run for the sheriff of Marion County. And, you and I talked before we started recording about how that looks. And it's interesting for you because my story's similar, different timelines in our careers. But you just kind of had that within you. You've seen something that just drew you to potentially running for that position. So talk to us a little bit what that looked like. You're lieutenant at Marion Police Department, and then eventually comes an election year. And how'd that look for Matt Bayles? That you just decided to take a leap into politics?
Well, it was something that I've been thinking about for a while because I saw some things going on in my county that I didn't necessarily agree with. There wasn't a lot of cooperation between agencies. The sheriff's office didn't really cooperate that well with the highway patrol or the police department. And the thing I preach around my office all the time is a Michael Jordan quote: "Teamwork makes the dream work." So in my mind, if we could come together as a team, be it the sheriff's office, the police department, the highway patrol, we come together as a team. And that is going to make Marion County a safer place to live in, because if somebody's in trouble, if somebody's hurt, if they need help, they don't care what color the shirt is that comes and helps them, whether it's black, gray, or blue, or what shape the badge is, if it's a shield or if it's a sheriff's star. They just care that somebody comes and helps. And that is something that I ran on whenever I was running for sheriff, was cooperation between agencies. Another thing that I strongly believe in is being a working sheriff. somebody that goes out on the roads of Marion County and handles calls and is among the citizens of Marion County and talking with them, finding out what's going on in Marion County. I go to township trustee meetings. I go to village council meetings. I make it a point of trying to, we have over 20 of them in Marion County villages and trustee. I make it a point of trying to get it to at least a couple of those a year to find out what's going on in those townships or villages. If there's anything that they're concerned about, whether it be something my deputies are doing that may not be right or something that they love about my deputies. And then I will pass those messages along to the deputies, to my supervisors, and say, hey, we're doing this great. The village of Green Camp loves what we're doing down there. Maybe, the village of Martell wants us to do something different. And it's something that I really strive to do. And it was something that I ran on, that I wanted to be out there on the road. The first year I was sheriff, I was on 166 calls in the county. The second year I was sheriff, I was on 222 calls in the county. So that's something I really strive to do, is be out there among the people and find out what's going on.
Yeah, and it's important, I think, as we serve in elected positions, and most folks know this, maybe not everyone that listens to this podcast across Ohio, across the country, and across the world. This thing will go wherever you want it to be right now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Might not understand we're the only elected law enforcement officer in our community. So being seen in the public's eye, being at those meetings, or just showing up to a call, sometimes for our citizens, or a lot of times, it's very important, and they're just like, wow, I can't believe you're out here as the sheriff. And, I find every once in a while, and I don't make a lot of actual call scenes with our guys. Obviously, we make the ones that are important or that we get called to, but, recently showed up just because I happened to be driving the same direction that one of the deputies was on a call and pulled in, and I think he looked at me just amazed, like, what, did I do something wrong? Is there something going on that you're here? I'm like, no, just stopping in. I just happen to be driving down the road and checking in on you. But being there to support our people, I think, is very important in the office of sheriff. Let's just take a little twist a little bit into your hobbies and interests, Sheriff Bayles. Anything that really interests you outside of law enforcement?
I like to fish. I like to golf. I've always loved football, baseball. My wife and I like to travel whenever we can. We've been a lot of places over the almost 32 years of our marriage. Those are the main ones, I would say. The main hobbies that I have.
Yeah, I found I've always enjoyed golf, but I'm absolutely awful at playing golf. So a few years ago, when my wife and I's life changed a little bit, where our kids went off to college and started on that empty nest trail, if you will, I said, I just really want to play more golf. I live close to a golf course, and so, she said, of course, go do it if that's what you want to do. And so I started my third season of that, and, I've gotten a little bit better at it. Still only playing about once a week, but that's a lot more than I ever played before. And both of my boys are, I would say, pretty good at playing golf. So just really, and it's just a great way to be out there, in the air. Hopefully it's not raining, but sometimes you got to play through that if it's a golf league, and just, get away from the office a little bit. There's times when the phone rings and it goes off in the middle of the golf game. You got to put your workout on for a little bit and then get right back to it. And, I say a lot of times to the people I play golf with, when they say, I can't believe you have time to play golf. And if you have good people working for you, it does give you that opportunity to go out there and relax a little bit on the golf course. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk just back to elections now. I know this, but for the folks at home, how many times have you ran for the office of sheriff? How many terms have you been the sheriff? How many years have you been the sheriff?
This was the first time that I ran. I've been sheriff for 3.5 years now.
Okay, and this is election year for us. Are you back on the ballot again in 2024?
I am.
All right, very good. Talk about the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, Matt. That's the sponsor of the podcast. Both of us sat on that board of directors. Again, I know this, but let's tell the listeners about positions that you've had within the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, any affiliations that you might have with the committees within the association. Talk a little bit about BSSA.
Yeah, BSSA is a great organization. They do a lot for the deputies and sheriffs around the state of Ohio. I'm currently the state secretary. I was on the board last year. And it's something that you go to these meetings, you find out what's going on, and I'm on the legislative committee. That's a very important committee for the BSSA, I believe, because those are the laws that are being made that we have to either support or challenge. They can really affect how we do law enforcement in the state.
Yeah, and Sheriff Mike Simpson from Preble County, he chairs that committee for us as an association. It just does a fantastic job.
Yes, he does.
Working within our group and with our executive director, Bob Cornwell, and our lobbyists and things that are going on. And, you hit that right on the head when you talk about, things that we support as an association and things that we need to maybe support and modify a little bit, and then things that we just have to oppose as an association for some reasonings. And, right now is just an interesting time because there's not a whole lot moving. As we record this podcast today, there's not a whole lot moving in the House of Representatives, which is at times for us somewhat frustrating when there's things that we think we need as law enforcement or sheriff specifically, and we need some legislation rather introduced or fixed, and we just can't seem to get a whole lot done. But that legislative meeting is one of the most important committees that we have in this association. Absolutely. Before we have our ad sponsorship, Sheriff, talk to me about just what drives you every day. I mean, you and I talked a little bit off air on our way out to the radio station to record this podcast, so I've got a little bit of idea about who you are and what drives you with your upbringing in public safety. But tell your listeners back in Marion, or people listening to this thing across the state, just what drives you, what gets you up every day, what drove you to run for that office of sheriff, and what gets you behind your employees to support them as you do your job daily.
Being a native of Marion, Ohio, I want Marion, Ohio to be the safest, the best county that they can possibly be in the state of Ohio. And the things that drive me are the things that I can do to make that happen. Whether it be make it a better work environment for my deputies, that they come to work because they want to come to work, not because they have to come to work. Going to the township trustee meetings, the village council meetings, and finding out what's happening in those villages and townships so I can address those issues and make it a better place for them to live. And it sounds corny, but one of the things that I got into law enforcement for was to make people safe and to right a wrong. And it's something that I do to this day. I got into law enforcement 34 years ago, and I love it as much today as I did back when I first started. And it's that feeling of being able to help somebody and being able to do something to make somebody's life a better life to live that really drives me every day to go in there and listen to my captains, listen to my deputies, listen to my chief deputy to find out what's going on and how we can improve things in our county to make it a better place to live for everybody.
Yeah, you talked about a couple of things right there that I think are very important. And, when you look at the politics that are associated with the office of sheriff, and I don't see it that way a lot. I'm with you, Matt. I mean, I really just love what I'm doing. I had a staff member tell me the other day, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. You just I can see the burning desire for the job within you. And, but to be a countywide elected official just takes a lot of work, right? So when you talk about going to, let's just say, township association meetings, so, we have, I don't know how many townships you have in your community, but in each township we have 3 elected trustees, you have a fiscal officer, and meeting with those people within the communities that they serve, right? So you take your county and you break it down into, say, 12 townships. Then in that township, there's 4 elected officials that have the pulse of that township. And by going to those meetings, and we know it's not practical to go to every single one of them, but if you can make one every once in a while, and frankly, I should be a lot better than this, we try to create some deputy liaisons to go to the township and bring information back to us. And then you take that to your villages, or whether you have a city council or whatever that is, and then you're going to meet with those people that are elected by, their people within their corporation limits. It just kind of helps you stay, have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in that community. And, it just being there for your people. And I just concur with everything you said about what drives you to come here. So we're going to go ahead and pay the bills. We're going to take an ad break. We'll be right back after this break with Sheriff Matt Bayles from Marion County, Ohio.
This podcast is sponsored by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. The BSSA is in Columbus, Ohio, and was established in 1931. The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association was formed to perpetuate an efficient organization of Ohio sheriffs and their deputies. BSSA provides an exchange of information pertaining to the duties, methods, and official practice of its members. The association also exerts such influence as may be necessary to bring about and preserve legislation in harmony with the needs of enforcement officials and the safety of the public. The BSSA supports the efforts of this podcast to promote Ohio sheriffs and deputies and their mission to serve and protect the citizens of Ohio.
We're back on the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We're going to continue on with Sheriff Matt Bayles from Marion County. Sheriff, we're going to talk to you a little bit more about the Marion County Sheriff's Office. What's the size of your agency? Now, as you drove to Paulding County, you talked about, we have a lot of windmills here. It's very flat and you can see for miles. Talk to us about the landscape of Marion County. What's your population? What's the size of your agency?
We have around 65,000 people in Marion County. Marion City is the seat of the county. There's about 35,000 people there. We have 39 sworn in my agency.
All right, very good. So one of the things that I think is interesting, we've had some training on this. So back in February, we had some training on this topic. And then if you were fortunate enough or chose to be down in Columbus this past week, we kind of added on to February's training, talking a lot about recruiting, talking about different things with retention of staff, with retaining staff, with background investigations. Anything you care to talk about with that you might be doing with recruitment, with videos, any type of programming that way within Marion County?
Absolutely. We have a recruiting video that we have on our Facebook page. We also have a police academy in our city. So I recruit heavily out of there whenever I am looking for somebody. And I've been able to hire a few people out of there. I've been lucky since I've been sheriff because I haven't had that many people leave. I've had a few leave. One just left because for more money and a different agency. But I've been very lucky in my term there so far that I haven't had a lot of people leave. Something else that we have is our public safety cadets, where we have kids as young as 13 years old that may have an interest in law enforcement, that we get them involved with public safety cadets, which teaches them law enforcement as they're growing up, and to see if that might be a area they might want to live the rest of their life in and a career that they have. We have about 25 public safety cadets right now between us and the Marion Police Department. We have a joint public safety cadet program, which I'm very proud of. And you're right, recruiting is a difficult task these days. I remember back whenever I joined the Marion Police Department, there was over 200 people that took the test to get the job that I got. The last time the Marion Police Department had a job opening, they had maybe 20 people that tried to get that job. And then whenever you cut down, some people will fail the background examination. Some people just don't have their academy training. You're down to 4 or 5 people that you have to choose from for a position where, 35 years ago you had 200.
Yeah, we talk a lot about this with law enforcement executives when it comes to hiring positions. And I said there was a time period not so long ago when we did not hire really good candidates because you took what you felt to be the cream of the crop. Now you're getting into a position where you might have to advertise for jobs more than once and try to build that pool of people. And some of the things that we've done locally, and those folks in our business know about the Ohio Collaborative and the standards that they set. For me, over the past few years, we've invested in a lot better policy with the Lexapol policy process, and then becoming compliant with the Ohio Collaborative has really fulfilled our pre-screening, our background check process that we didn't do here historically. I don't see where that's necessarily prevented us from hiring people because people didn't meet our standard that way, but I think it's really put together a better process for us when it comes to selecting candidates. And I wonder if it's for you as it is for us, where we're kind of seeing the tide turn a little bit, where it was very, very difficult to get applicants. And we're starting to see when we have job postings that we're getting a decent amount of applicants. And I don't know, just across the nation, there was such at times a negative perception on law enforcement that maybe that was that tough time we went through, and hopefully it's behind us and we're starting with these recruitment videos and different things we're doing to write our own narrative and tell people the good work that we're doing every day.
Absolutely. I think the tough time that we had after what happened in Minnesota, that had a direct impact on law enforcement recruiting. We are having a few more now than what we had a couple years ago, but we're not seeing a dramatic increase in applicants right now. In fact, it was kind of a running joke. When I worked at the Marion Police Department, we stole probably 12 deputies from the sheriff's office that came over to the Marion Police Department. Well, since I became sheriff, we've stolen 2 from the Marion Police Department to become deputies, and they haven't stolen anybody from us. So it's kind of a running joke between me and Police Chief Jay McDonald that I'm stealing his people now.
Nice. One thing that we saw, and I think we see this across the state, is there became kind of a wage war over the past couple of years. There was agencies from the state to your local police departments. A lot of sheriffs that I got to talk to, through our association, were fighting with suburbs of cities or their police departments who were given such substantial wage increases that as county sheriffs, our budget's set by the commissioners. So we have to go to our commissioners and get their support and buy-in that we need to get our wages up to be competitive to get people to apply, or in the situation you're talking about, try to maybe pull in lateral transfers from other agencies that can help us out a little bit. So that's been kind of interesting to go through from that perspective. Let's switch a little bit and talk about crime in Marion County. This answer, your episode number 5, has been kind of consistent, but I want to hear what's happening in Marion County. Talk to us about what the most persistent crime is right now that you see your folks dealing with.
Ours, like probably every other community in the United States, has a drug problem. We have a top-notch drug enforcement unit. It's a joint agency between us and the Marion Police Department and our Marion County Prosecutor's Office. It's called MARMET, and it's part of Metrich, which is a 10-county drug enforcement unit. MARMET was named the Drug Enforcement Unit of the Year in Ohio last year. They've just done a tremendous job. They are really cracking down on drugs. It's not uncommon for them to have multiple arrests per week, multiple search warrants per week, and so that's something that we really crack down on. Our violent crime is down in Marion compared to what it was 5 years ago. I really think that the cooperative attitude between the agencies now are really helping out in all areas of law enforcement in Marion County.
And it only makes good sense, and you said this earlier, and I concur with you. It doesn't matter what uniform you're wearing, what your badge looks like. We're all in this for the same purpose of keeping people safe and their property safe, and taking the folks off the street that need to be off the street. Now, geographically located, for those that don't know, Marion County, you're just less than an hour north of Columbus, north of Delaware. 23 runs right through. So when you talk about drugs, narcotics, and things as far as couriers go, you're right there. You're in that direct line right up to Toledo, right up towards Detroit. So we're situated by Fort Wayne, Indiana, which comes right up from the southern border through Indianapolis to Fort Wayne, and right across US 24 with Toledo making its way up towards Detroit. You have that straight route as well. Do you see that plays into the narcotics world in Marion County?
Yes, that's been the problem of ours for years. We have a lot of people from Detroit coming down to try to sell drugs in Marion. Also, people from Chicago. We've had a problem with them in Marion County. And like I said, I can't say enough about Marmet Drug Unit. We belong to Metrich, which is a 10-county drug enforcement unit. Of the 10 counties, Marion County takes 70% of the drugs total of those 10 counties are confiscated in Marion County. So our drug unit is outstanding.
Yeah, that's great. Any hurdles in law enforcement, Sheriff, that come to your mind, just things that you have to work around that causes you just, something you have to jump over to accomplish the mission?
Not really locally. I think that a hurdle that not only us, but every law enforcement agency in the state has is the APATA guidelines for physical fitness for people to be able to get a law enforcement certificate. I personally think they're a little bit too stringent. Being what recruitment is these days, I think they need to be relaxed a little bit. And I'm not talking about the knowledge portion of this. I'm talking about the physical fitness, which just last month I had a kid who was a super kid. He is ace in everything in the academy class. He got shin splints during the run, and he failed. There's 3 different portions. There's the run, sit-ups, push-ups, and you have to score pretty much 100% on all that stuff. And he failed the run, and so he's out of the class. If he wants to come back, he has to go through the entire academy again. I think that's a hurdle that we all have to face. Whenever you have candidates who are good candidates, but just that one thing trips them up.
Yeah, I do credit current Attorney General Dave Yost created the Blue Ribbon Task Force, of which we had a couple sheriffs a part of, with other folks in our field of work that we're looking at how to revise that, maybe to, in some terms, catch up with the times, and in some terms, if the standards is still going to be in place for physical fitness, that maybe they have different opportunities to pass that if it doesn't happen in the first two. Something that I'm interested in is, historically it's been 2 and done, right? So if you don't pass the allocated number of push-ups for your age bracket and gender, then you don't get to take the setups. If you don't pass the push-ups and the setups, you can't take the 1.5-mile run and so forth. And if you would pass or fail, let's say, either one of those 3 twice, you're done. You're let's just say, a 9-month academy, and let's just say $10,000 expense associated with that is over, and there's no opportunity to retake it. So I think that's one of the things that was on the table, to work through how they might be able to kind of tweak that a little bit and still keep the importance of being physically fit, but give people a better opportunity, to pass that thing. And I think there was a lot of support for that across Ohio. So, we'll see how that thing comes out. I know the Attorney General was able recently to review that proposal that was made to him with some changes. And, I would agree with you that there's been situations that we've experienced here local where maybe a couple push-ups has prevented someone from taking that state test who probably could have served really well in law enforcement somewhere. And what I talked about personally and professionally is leaving that up to the appointing authority, which is the sheriff or the chief, as to who they want to represent the jurisdictions that they serve, the communities that they serve in. And, I really think that could be different for each entity. We might have some villages that have, 300 or 400 people in it that might be acceptable of this person versus this person, and that one size fits all approach across the state should be looked at and considered. And so I give them folks credit for at least doing what they've done to date to talk about those things, and we'll see how it all comes out in the wash. So let's talk a minute about CPT, continual professional training. That's something that's mandated in the statute right now. We've been doing that for a couple years, and in our careers, for both of us, it's been on and off. There might be 4 hours one year and then nothing for 2 or 3 years. Right now, what's before us is 24 hours, and 8 of which of that 24 is mandated in that statute of what those are. Any thoughts on CPT or how maybe that could change for Matt Bayles?
I think it's very important for us to keep up on our training every year. And it's something that I've stressed ever since I became sheriff, whether it's CPT hours or just training that I send my people to. I think we have to keep up to date because things change all the time in law enforcement. The technology changes. The way you handle certain calls sometimes changes. So I think we have to keep up on the CPT hours and make sure that our people are properly trained.
That's fantastic. I agree. One of the focal points of the creation of this podcast, Sheriff, was to connect sheriffs and deputies with the communities that they serve. Tell your people what you like most about your current position as sheriff. We talked a little bit about that in the beginning of the podcast in different ways, but what do you really like about this humbling position of sheriff in your community?
It really is a humbling position. Just yesterday, I was in a parade down in Waldo, Ohio, which is home of the famous bologna sandwich from the DNR Tavern. I had to give them a little plug on that. But when I was down there was a drunk driver that was in the Duke station that had passed out behind the wheel, and I was right there, and I go over there, and then we call the squad over, and the squad comes out and says, "Oh, the big boss is here today." That's humbling whenever you hear something like that. But I can't say enough about my community, about the community, the entire county of Marion, and the things that the people I meet and the calls I go on with my deputies, and it's just the feeling that you get when I still get this feeling today that I had 35 years ago of being able to go up and help somebody. And now I have it on a bigger scale where I can affect the entire sheriff's department. I can make it a better place for the deputies to work at. I can reach out and talk with our county commissioners, with our trustees, with our village council, and I can be the person that's able to make Marion County a better place to live in, and that's been my goal ever since I got into law enforcement, really. But as sheriff, I have that ability more to be able to make those changes and affect those changes, and it's something that's special for me, especially being from Marion County and loving that county as much as I do. Yeah,
it is special. I talk about this, it seems like, frequently with people, and if we talk specifically about our staffs, and I call it coaching, right? I mean, always coaching them up and try to teach them and talk to them about things that they don't understand or maybe gripe about in the squad room. It's really humbling to experience how many people call us and want to tell us things, or how many people have a situation they don't know how to handle, so they say, I'm going to call the sheriff, or I don't care what it is. And so you might hear a staff member grumble about, I can't believe this person called us to say this. Well, again, I say humbling, I don't want to oversay, but that's pretty special, right? So if you think whatever that crisis is that's going on in someone's life, when the only thing they can think about is to call the sheriff, that's pretty cool. I mean, there's not a lot of other positions and careers, and I'm not taking anything away. My close family that work in construction or might work in a factory. If there's something going on at home and you don't know who else to call, you're probably not going to call the secretary at the factory. You're going to call when you think, I'm going to call the sheriff and see how they can help me with this. That's pretty cool, man. I mean, it's cool. Just, again, I say it and I oversay it. It's just very humbling to be in this position. And I had a captain when I was in the police department, and he always preached, they are our customers. The community is our customers. We need to be able to help them in whatever they need. And that's something that stuck with me ever since he started saying that. And it's been years ago he started saying that, but that always stuck with me through today, really. And he was one of those supervisors that went out on the road all the time and answered calls. And I kind of, I guess, base what I want to do as a supervisor to be kind of like him. And because I remember back whenever I was a patrolman on the road, and I saw the chief or the captain come out and start answering calls, and I thought that was pretty cool. They're out here doing the stuff with us, and so that's why I to this day I still like going out and answer calls in Marion County. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. So as we start to wrap things up, we've talked about persistent crime, talked a little bit about narcotics going on. We talked about CPTs. We just talked about, some of the things that we really enjoy about this job. Matt, is there anything within law enforcement in general that you would like to see be done just a little bit different? I mean, anything, it's a great profession, but anything on your mind that you would tweak just a little bit if you could?
I don't know. That's something that I've thought about. Law enforcement in general, like I've said several times on this podcast, I love and I love the people that we deal with on a daily basis. There are certain programs that I feel are very important as far as community policing is involved. I've always been a big community policing person. Like I've said, I go out to the meetings and everything. But whenever I came into the sheriff's office, one of the first things I did was create a position for a community policing deputy. And we created programs trying to help out the public. One of those programs is our Safeguard Our Seniors program, or SOS. And what that is if there is a elderly person who lives alone, may not have a family that lives in the area, or not even an elderly person, but anybody that might be a shut-in or a disabled person who has nobody there to help them, they can sign up for our program, and once a week our community relations deputy will go to their house and check on them. And he might sit there for half an hour and just talk with them. And that might be the only human interaction they have for the week, is that deputy going to their house and checking on them and seeing how they're doing. Another program that I'm very, very proud of that we formulated is our inmate work program. And when I came into the sheriff's office and saw the amount of money that we were spending to house inmates out of county, it boggled my mind. And the county commissioners are the same way. Since 2020, we spent about $3 million housing inmates out of county because of the overcrowding that we have in our jail. So I wanted to work on that and see what I could do about that. So we formulated, myself, my chief deputy at the time, we got together with a couple of the judges in Marion County, our municipal court judge, and we formulated a plan where we would get inmates out of jail a couple times a week, and they would do work around Marion County. And for that, it's a win-win for all of us. It's a win for us because the judge is giving them 2 days credit off their sentences for every day they are in the program, which helps us with the overcrowding problem. It helps the inmate because he's getting out sooner. It helps the community because they're doing projects like over in New Bloomington, they spread mulch down for children's playground. In Green Camp, they reset headstones at the cemetery. They've been out to our dog pound numerous times, cleaning the dog pound up. They will do work for any government entity or any nonprofit organization, and they get credit. The government entity and nonprofit organization that gets the work done that they might not be able to afford or be able to do, we get to get them in and out of jail quicker, and the inmate gets out of jail quicker. So it's like I said, it's a win-win for everybody involved, and it's really a program that has kind of caught fire in Marion County. The citizens of Marion County love it because they see them out there and they see the work that they do. Last summer they painted a bunch of buildings in the fairground right before the fair. It's stuff that has really caught fire in Marion County, and the public loves it.
That's a great vision, and how you can, take a bad situation and turn it to good. One of the cool things about hosting this podcast I hope everybody listens to all of them, right? But getting to be a part of them is learning these little things that other sheriffs are doing and as you're talking, I'm trying to picture them in my agency and go, how can we accomplish that? And, we're not all, capable of thinking up our own things sometimes. So taking what someone else is doing and tweaking that to benefit us is, part of what we do. And as, go back to when I was a newly elected sheriff and reaching out when we're down in Columbus for what we refer to as our new sheriff school, we got to spend 3 weeks with each other. I brought a boatload of stuff back from that when you get the opportunity to, whether it's sit around in the lounge after class or during class, and you're sharing these different programs. Matt, these are some really cool programs that you talked about, and I promise you, I'm going to go back and think about those a little bit. The inmate working process is a little tougher than us. We have mostly in our jail felons that are awaiting sentencing, not necessarily misdemeanors. I mean, if we have any, I would be really surprised in people that at one time we would use to do trustee work and go work at the fairgrounds and stuff, but it's still really good, really good information.
These are all low-level misdemeanor, nonviolent. Plus, they have to be cleared by the jail, the judge, and us to be able to participate in it. And it's amazing the amount of inmates that want to be in this. They send messages to our jail administrator all the time saying, I want to be in that program.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, in Marion County, you have a joint county jail system. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have a multi-county jail with Hardin County.
Okay, so 2 counties. And what's a daily population for that joint jail?
The maximum is supposed to be 222. We try to keep it around 210 or so. We've had as many as 60 inmates housed out of county before. So, wow. And that's just been within the past year. But we always have somebody housed out of county because of the population there.
Sure. Great. Well, it's been a great discussion with you, Sheriff. Is there anything we've left out today?
I don't think so. I think we've covered pretty much everything.
All right. Well, Sheriff Bayles, I would like to thank you for being a part of today's episode. We would like to thank the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association for their sponsorship. For Sheriff Matt Bayles, I'm Jason Landers. I'll be right back here next month featuring another Ohio sheriff or deputy on the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Bob Cornwell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, located in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. It was brought to you by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. With this podcast, we are striving to introduce you to sheriffs and deputies from around the state of Ohio and recognize their great work they do every day for the citizens of Ohio. For more information about our organization, Google Buckeye State Sheriff. Thank you.